I've been burning up the road while heading to a couple really great model shows recently, but now it's time to get back to the bench. What was I working on? Oh yeah, the multi-group build GTO project that falls into Blue Ox Modeling's Street Machine group build, Woody's Rock and Roll on Wheels group build, the Luca C 67 to 72 GTO group build, and last but not least, NYS Modeling's Pro Street group build. I missed the deadline on this one, but NYS is my boy, and he says keep on going, so let's do just that. If you're just joining, I'm combining these two kits as this is a popular kit bash, as these are common at local Hobby Lobbies. If you haven't seen the previous installments, I invite you to go back and check those out. Last time I was fitting this 3D printed engine and was about to add tri-power to make it more GTO-like. Let's see what happens next.
So where we left off was with the 3D printed Butler Pontiac engine, and I had carved up this Mopar 6-pack unit to sort of resemble a Pontiac intake, and actually had comments like that a 4-barrel would be more performance-like, and I kind of feel like a GTO should have a 6-pack or something tri-power. So the other reason was I had found this air filter on Colts for free, and I kind of like that. Kind of makes it custom a little bit, and it's sort of one of those March performance-like things of that era. And yeah, the style, I don't know, is kind of funny, but again, it was free. And one of the things I like about it is when you look at the hood, is it kind of matches the hood scoop if you squint. So that's kind of neat. I've mentioned one of the beauties of 3D printing is you can make as many of the parts as you want. So while this might be the mock-up engine, get that out of the way, I have the real engine over here. And so I've already got some primer on it, and there's some subtle differences here. Is the as printed has an electric water pump, and that's not really street-like. So what I did here is modify the front cover with some evergreen to be a little bit more like the stock water pump. I also drilled these where the pulleys go, because I've got a little pack of aluminum pulleys from Mr. Model. And then I did another thing here, is if you look, I've got two little pins, and this is the alternator from the big block out of the Chevelle. As you can see, I've had to kind of test fit this a couple times, but that is drilled and pinned, so that alternator is not going to go anywhere when I put the aluminum pulleys on it. Another thing I did was these valve covers have Butler engraved in them, and I kind of didn't like that, so I took another set and filled that. And so these are going to be smooth, but I think I'm going to jazz them up a little bit. So they still keep the correct Pontiac bolts and all that kind of stuff, because I'm adamant I want the Pontiac look for this engine. Keep it all Pontiac. So that's looking pretty cool. The other thing, the oil pan has been modified to be more Pontiac-like. This is the big block one. I have to bevel the front of it a little bit to fit the front cover. And then, of course, we've talked about the transmission. This is the bell housing that comes in the Butler kit that has the correct bolt pattern. And then this is, in the previous videos, I showed cutting this off of the big block Chevy so I don't have to modify the trans tunnel. This little 4-speed transmission, although not very prototypically correct, it's a little squished to fit that trans tunnel, but all of this will work in separate pieces so it allows for easier painting. And finally, we have those really cool headers that will go on. And these have all been test fitted into the chassis. So we can move on to more chassis. So here's the chassis. As you can see, we've gotten some primer on it, cleaning up seams and whatnot. And I've gone into detail of what I did to make the steering posable. And of course you could add more steering bits. We might add sway bar links because that's what that is, and it kind of is just floating. I don't know, might get in the way. But keeping the front suspension kind of box stockish, if you will. But we really haven't talked about what's gonna go on back here. And I've mentioned before, these little arms here have been shaved, so the rear axle will mount much lower, because as the Chevelle sits, it sits kind of high in the back, and Pro Street cars should sit pretty low. The kit wheelie bar upper links for the axle are all one piece. I considered getting rid of the wheelie bars. I still might, I don't know, but they kind of look cool. And keeping with the flavor of the Pro Street and the Chevelle, I don't know, I just might leave those. So that keeps the assembly of this pretty basic. I'll probably add a little bit of evergreen right in here to have a more positive fit for this axle and not have that little gap before we paint these. But we got to kind of look at some of this other stuff. The Chevelle kit has a nice set of big block Chevy headers, sort of. The ports aren't exactly in line. These two should be closer together, but that's okay, you don't really see them. I think the bigger problem is it has this blobbish header muffler, which sort of resembles a Super Trap, which was a pretty popular muffler back when this kit was originally tooled. And that's not really what is cool today. I kind of want a real street type exhaust. So the first thing for an exhaust is I needed some mufflers. And so I found these in my parts box, and I liked these because they were smaller. I could have used the ones that came in the GTO kit, but they're just kind of blobby looking and maybe not as complete on the bottom side as I wanted. So yeah, that kind of, you know where that goes. Burn pile. So if you look at these, I have a small hole drilled here, and this hole was actually molded in for a tailpipe from the kit that they came out of, which I think is some kind of Camaro. I guess so, maybe, I don't know. And if you look close, I've drilled and pinned that rod, which then will positively fit into the chassis. That helps locate things and aids in mocking up, making sure everything fits right. So the headers and engine aren't in clearly, and so I needed to connect them, and these are simply bent from solder. And I have a little piece of aluminum tubing that slides over as a connector to hide the seam. And why I like this solder is it's about 2.4-ish millimeters, which is like a 2.5-inch pipe. A lot of the solder you find at the stores is thicker, that kind of is even more than a 3-inch pipe. And I know some cars have a 3-inch exhaust, but a 2.5 is a little bit more stock-like or street-like. This isn't stock at all. So here I have the main pipes in place along with the transmission cross member. And so you have a choice of trying to make some kind of turnouts. And what I chose to do was make these pieces. And this is simply another piece of solder bent and a piece of tubing as the connector that goes to the muffler. And then this is a stepped piece of tubing that was cut that slides on. And then the angle matches the rocker panel. So these have the small pin that then go on like so. And so this exhaust is similar to like what you might see on an AAR CUDA. You know, the exhaust goes in the muffler, out the muffler, and out the side. And then that allows the cool tip to be here. So there's the exhaust all mocked up. I kind of like how that looks. And a lot of this will wind up being painted. You know, the mufflers, of course, even though the solder is metal, I think I'm going to go with more of a used kind of look on it. But I think I'm going to polish the tips back out since they're aluminum and you can. The best thing about this exhaust system is it fits very tight, which allows the car to sit extremely low, and without, if there was a tire failure or something like that, it wouldn't drag. Speaking of those wheels and tires, let's check those out. The 67 Chevelle kit comes with these weird 4-spoke billet wheels, which when this kit came out, I was like, why? You know, a wheel should have 5 spokes. I mean, that's just me. I don't know, maybe you. But we won't be using those. So you know where those are heading. So I found these wheels on Colts 3D. These Krager Eliminator wheels, as the files are downloaded, are 19 inches. But I like them because they have separate outer rings and separate center caps. And they remind me of the Hurst wheels that were available on many of the GTOs of this era. So after some careful scaling, I came up with Pro Street sized eliminators. And I also did the same on the rears. And these have been, again, the mock-up wheels, because I have a whole nother set so I can paint and keep these nice. So speaking of paint, I picked up this Mr. Clear color, deep clear red. And I thought that was kind of an interesting color, and decided to actually do a few spoon tests, which I never do, over a variety of base coats. And we're gonna see, I doubt I'll even have any of these colors, because I kind of just paint, and it's part of the journey that the color just becomes the color, and I just paint until I'm happy with it. But I thought this was kind of a neat start, but I have some ideas of maybe some effects in the base coats before I put this on. So since all of this stuff is basically in primer, let's head to the paint booth and start spraying some color.
So while painting the GTO, something extremely strange happened. I think it became the start of a Revell C8 Corvette. A guy's got to have at least more than one project. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, you know what to do, because I have all kinds of model car stories to tell. Thanks for watching.